So we'll call this a 5-time win. My name's Greg Soter. I live in Provo. I'm the wing DOV, and I'm very happy to be here with you. I'll have a little more housekeeping here in a minute, but the first thing we'd like to do is ask Scott Lawson to offer a safety briefing for us, please.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Scott Lawson. I'm with the Salt Lake Senior Squadron, and I'm also the safety officer. So for our safety this morning, just to address it, you guys all came in. That is the exit right over there. We'll just go out to the parking lot if we have to exit the building. I don't foresee any issues with that. Really, the only risk, as I was looking at possible risk for today, is the weather. But I don't really think that's going to be too much of a problem still into the evening, and maybe tomorrow there is some forecast for snow. So if that happens to roll up early, we'll adjust, of course. But again, I don't think that'll be an issue for us. We do have food, refreshments for everyone in the back. Bathrooms are in the back. And another thing I'd like to point out is we also have this set up as an FAA safety team wings event. If you guys are not familiar with that, please provide your email address to me, and we'll make sure that you get credit for this. I've set up all 8 of the events as 1/2 hour credits for a basic, your basic ground training. And the benefit of being in wings, if you're not already in there, is if you complete 3 hours of ground events and 3 hours of flight activities, it actually constitutes a flight review. So if you participate in the wings program, today will get you 4 hours. If you attend all 8 of the events, that's 4 hours of ground activities. And then it gives you something to work towards the next time you go up with a CFI. You can make it a little more meaningful than just going up there and, building time. There's a lot of air activities. They're like mini syllabus that you can go by to give you an objective to make that training sortie a little more productive next time you go up with an instructor. And then they can go in, they can register it. And there's also a lot more linkage now between wings and Civil Air Patrol. You can register your CAP ID in there. If you do a Form 5, I just did a Form 5 with Jaron, and he was able to update that, and that gave me a whole bunch of credits for both air and ground. So that's all I have to say for safety. Thank you.
That's good, because I am highly committed to keeping us on schedule. I've got my clock set to stopwatch. Yes, and we'll thank Mike Guy. I told him about wanting to stay on schedule, and he said, Greg, I've got a crook, a shepherd's crook. I said, great, bring it. I'd like to offer congratulations to Colonel Jason Hess, who recently, I'm guessing that all of you may know, that Colonel Hess was invited to take command of the region responsibilities. That seems to me to be a huge compliment to him. Congratulations. We'll miss you here, but glad you're here this morning. Colonel, if you want to say a word or two. Let's see, I've given you 8 minutes. 8 minutes, and he's got his timer going.
I'm no dummy. I've dealt with Greg long enough. I'm going to go 10, but just to see what he does. Not true. So, yeah. Colonel Johnson sends his regrets. He was feeling a little under the weather this morning, couldn't attend, so he sent me. I'm sorry. But wanted to stand up real quick and take an opportunity to, number one, congratulate this wing. And I have to say it that way now. It's really weird. It almost hurts a little bit. This isn't being recorded, right?
It is.
Darn. Don't show the general this. But Utah came in number 2 last year in utilization of aircraft. Our safety incident count, however, did not match, which was good, right? They were disproportionately separated by a significant gap, and that's what I want to see happen in this wing again. I used the utilization throughout the last year and a half or so as your wing commander as a good ribbon and goat with some of the other region wing commanders, right? I was really using it hard with Colorado. He doesn't like me anymore because we excelled, and that was all because of you, right? Every one of you that has wings on your chest, that has a Form 5 in your pocket, or is a solo endorsed pilot, made that happen. And that's huge. I mean, number 2 across the nation means you use those airplanes well. That unfortunately puts a burden on me, because then I have to figure out if I'm bringing another airplane in or out of the wings to distribute that load, right? So instead of, you guys staying high, I might knock you down a couple of notches because you'll get another airplane. That's not a promise. I'm just simply saying, keep that hard work up, and that's a natural consequence of how it works. This flight clinic was mandated by General Falcon. He and I spent a little bit of time 2 weeks ago. He flew in specifically just to talk to me. That's not true. But we spent some time talking about professionalism in pilots. How many of you know what General Felka does for a living? Anybody? So General Felka is a charter pilot. He has an opportunity to pick up charters every once in a while and get himself around the country, flying some nice equipment. But so he is a professional pilot himself. And he was actually pretty remiss. He says, "Shoot, I should have come in a day early and taken you flying." So he's a check airman. I think he wanted to make sure that he wasn't appointing somebody that didn't know the operation. But as being your DO for 8 years and then subsequently watching the operations from the back seat, I've let Lance take the helm there, and seeing the successes that he had. What a fantastic opportunity! But I wanted to reinforce a little bit stronger. Let me check my, my time. Okay, good.
2 minutes 54.
I'm speeding right through this, so we're gonna have to riff a bit to fill my 8 minutes. The General Falco wants certainly the professionalism to improve within our pilot corps. Not a problem in this wing, honestly. I'm going to be frank. I've watched, I've observed, I've paid attention to the crews that we have, the level of training, the opportunities in front of us. I've flown with a number of you. I've taken check rides with a number of you for the FAA. I mean, this is a group of individuals that I don't worry about. Flip that on its head. This is a group of individuals I'm going to be leaning on to spreading that professionalism across the region. Okay? We're going to be creating opportunities inside of this region to sharing the success stories that we see from wing to wing to the other wings. That's my job, is to make sure that the region sees all of the successes that each of the respective wings bring to the table. And for you guys, it's utilization and flying. No question, hands down. The general said it. He goes, "I don't know how you did it. I just want to see it replicated." Do I think that's happening overnight? No. But we need to improve that professionalism across the region. We need to leverage the skill set of people like you that are taking it to the next level. We need to take those opportunities to getting more of our cadets, good to see you two here, excited about changing out their solo wings for real wings, right? That's a huge thing that the general wants to see happen within our wings and within the region. So look for some of those opportunities from coming down the pike as we get back into a busy flying season, right? Right now we're getting into probably a little bit of a lull, but we are also very unique in the Rocky Mountain region. What makes Rocky Mountain region unique from basically anywhere else?
Mountains.
These big rocks, right? They're big rocks. Those rocks keep me up at night. And I'll tell you why. Because I have a relationship with every one of you in this room. They make me nervous. They do. Right? When I was bringing back one of the 172s not too long ago, of course it was a long time ago, back in 2015, right? I was taking the southern route because 172 doesn't do too well over the top of the range very, very easily. And I was talking to Albuquerque Center, and he says, got 4368 or 86, whatever it was. I'm getting them confused. See, Craig, what are we doing? 4386, are you familiar with the rising train you're approaching? Sir, I'm based out of Salt Lake. You have a nice day. Right? That type of attitude where they have the opportunity to understand that we operate in a different environment and they don't necessarily have to worry about us. But why do you think he was asking that question? Because somebody coming out of go ahead.
Well, it's because people, we find airplanes 50 feet from the top of a ridge, don't stop it.
Yep. People that come out of the flatlands where I was coming out of, right? They get into that train, they don't understand it, they don't appreciate it, and it becomes a problem. And it keeps me up at night. Every one of you, it keeps me up. And that's not because I don't believe that you're capable. It's because I want you to continue to be safe in those mountains. And so we need to be cognizant of that. You know, the other part of that story is I'm flying over Vance Air Force Base, and I'm up there at 4,500 feet. And somebody got on the radio and said, "Why are you so high?" I said, "Geez, if I were at 4,500 feet at my home base, I'd be boring a hole in the ground." And they went, "Oh, okay." So, I mean, we all have to be relative, right? Did a long cross country once, taking an airplane eastbound, and didn't see any of the terrain because I was looking at the backside of Boggles for, what was that, 8 hours, correct?
About that, yeah.
It was a long time. But you know, you're
still
looking,
here.
and I was looking at the MFD, and you see all these little things that are popping up. 5 minutes, 7 minutes. Jeez, that's fast. Radio antenna, something we don't have to worry about, but we should absolutely be cognizant about, right? So Craig, make sure to look out there real quick, because we're right at the top of that flashing beacon, right? We need to be cognizant of the things that are around us. And those are just two very simple opportunities for me to provide a visual for you. But these are the experiences that we have together. But I absolutely want you to take this opportunity to learn the things that the general wants you to do. I'm going to learn them. That's why I'm here. I'm not here to talk. I'm done in 1 minute. Greg's going to tell me. Greg, Vern, Gil. It's all just blending in my head because I've had that opportunity to enjoy the professionalism that's been raised in my flying. My wife will tell you, CAP makes me a better pilot. So let's see if you make y'all a better pilot as well. So there it is. We're done. And now for the extra 2-minute extension. Let's have a good time and learn a lot. Thanks.
Again, Colonel, congratulations on your new responsibility. No. Okay. Couple of housekeeping items. First of all, we got plenty of food in the back, breakfast type food. You're welcome to go consume that. We'll have some lunch brought in during our lunch break. I got some pizza on its way, or will be on its way. So we should be well fed. I hope, cross my fingers, I hope to have us out of here at 3 o'clock. We'll see. So one of the things you can do to help with that is that if a speaker goes past 30 minutes and I don't stand up and get the shepherd's crook, stand up and say, "You're done, you're done."
I think the best thing to do is everybody start clapping.
Yeah, okay, everybody start clapping.
Put the timer up on the screen.
I'd like us to have a very relaxed atmosphere here throughout the entire day. Stand up, walk around. If your fanny's tired of sitting in that chair, just feel free to walk around or do whatever you like. We welcome commentary. I'd rather this be a discussion rather than a series of lectures. So if you've got questions, comments, please make them known. Let's see.
If you have questions or comments, speaker probably repeat them, because if it's from the back of the room, these guys won't be able to hear it.
Good idea. Big thanks to Mike Dyke, our wing IT specialist. Mike has been extremely helpful in getting this set up. Thank you, Mike, for being here. He is a wonderful guy to work with. Appreciate him so much. And yes. And also Scott Lawson. Scott has been, when I was putting this together, I was planning to have it in the second floor of the wing building. Given this crowd, we would have been like this in that room. Scott has made arrangements to use this facility, has been really, really helpful in a number of other assignments as well. Scott, thank you so much. Colonel Hess alluded, well, he didn't allude to the fact, he stated that this seminar was precipitated by our national commander. I don't know if all of you received this memo or not, but let me summarize. This came out on July 21st, so this get-together has been a long time in the making. Essentially, well, let me just read a couple of items off here. CAP remains one of the safest flying organizations in the world, but we should always strive to improve. CAP has experienced some preventable mishaps recently that should give us all reason to pause and look at how we can improve flying safety across CAP. And then he goes on to assign every wing to hold a flight clinic, which is what we're doing this morning. And there were 8 specific assignments given. And these are the 8 assignments that are going to be discussed by our 8 presenters today. And notice that of these 8 topics, 7 of them are really, really fundamental. I mean, you can't get more basic than stabilized approaches, slow flight, steep turns, stalls, go-arounds, general pattern operations, and short soft field takeoffs and landings. Those are early private pilot stuff generally. The 8th topic was timely instructor intervention. Now that's not quite so fundamental, and that's the one that I chose to present myself. So that's why we're here, because our national commander has said, hey folks, get back to the basics, please. Back to the basics. That said, I'm going to start my timer now. Mike, you want to put up my slides?
On its way.
Yes.
I noticed that Mike Dyke had a microphone.
Yes.
Can you share that with him, please?
All right. Is this better?
Much better.
All right. Good. My topic I've chosen to title, Don't Let the Other Pilot Kill You. Again, I'm Greg. I live in Provo. I've been a pilot since 1969, been in CAP for 6 years. I'm one of the newbies, here. And I was complimented to be asked to serve as wing director of Standard. Let me give you a little bit of background. I wasn't quite sure when I knew what those other 7 topics were, but when I said timely instructor intervention, certainly I know what that means. I'm that smart. But I wasn't quite sure what had motivated that or why they wanted to have us teach this topic. So I made a phone call to Michael Moyer, who is Cap National's paid stand-eval officer. He is sort of, if Cap had a position called chief pilot, that would be Mike. We had a really, really productive conversation. I said, give me some background. Why do you want this particular topic taught? What motivated this? He said, well, we're just not doing as well with general safety as we ought to be. And he went even a little more specific in saying the CAP has recently had multiple aircraft destroyed due to lack of instructor intervention. This is the kind of thing we don't want to see in CAP. Here's another one we don't want to see. Fortunately, in the couple of accidents that he referenced, there were no fatalities. Everybody walked away. But in 2 of those recent accidents, there were 2 CFIs in the front seat.
Well, that's dangerous.
Yeah, most of you have probably heard that the most dangerous thing in aviation is 2 instructors in the front seat of an airplane. Well, in these particular cases, that proved true. Both accidents happened because of lack of CFI intervention. Now, I think nearly everybody in this room is a pilot, and if you're not, that's fine. We welcome you regardless. And of course, we've got a handful of instructors. Does anybody know how many total instructors we have in CAP or in our wing?
Our wing?
Yeah, we've got.
Give me a minute, I'll count them up.
Okay.
We're about half of our pilots are instructors.
Yeah, we've got about 50 some active pilots, and I was thinking maybe 2 dozen.
I'll get the number here.
All right, thank you, Colonel. Appreciate it. But whether you're an instructor or not, this absolutely pertains to you. I'm fond of saying in safety briefings that I do in our squadron that you don't need to have an instructor or even a pilot's credential to have a brain. And if you're sitting in an airplane and there's stupid stuff going on, call it, say something. So my discussion is going to focus on timely instructor intervention. And to me, that's all about finding balance. Found this, kind of liked it. To me, that speaks of the concept of balance. Notice Papa Bear there in the middle is, his porridge is way too hot. Mama Bear on the right is looking to me like she's bored to death because her porridge is too cold. And Baby Bear down on the left, to me, is just rocking and rolling because his or her porridge is just right. So what we're looking for in our flights is the Goldilocks syndrome, I think, of finding balance. Colonel.
48 VFR pilots, 19 instructors in safety.
48 pilots, 19 instructors? Great. Thank you very much. So is the porridge too hot or is it too cold? Now, what do I mean by that? Baby Bear was spot on. The porridge needs to be just right. Likewise, instructor intervention. Not too soon, not too late. Let's talk about this for just a minute. Any thoughts about what I've said here? Yes, sir, Vern.
I've noticed over the years, when I started instructing, one of the questions I had is when do you get to control? And that's always a question. Every flight, that's a question I have. And I think some of it comes with the experience of knowing what to expect with the airplane and the actions. I mean, when a person's coming in for a landing, what to expect, and if it's out of that envelope, you really need to pay attention whether you go around or take control. And that's something that you kind of learn, but you have to be paying attention. The idea is when you go out as an instructor, you kind of figure the other guy's going to try and kill you. And you have to pay attention.
Okay, you said that you kind of learn and you kind of have to pay attention. Now, in the two accidents that Michael pointed out to me, two instructors, one flying, one monitoring, was the problem that they had not learned or that they had not paid attention?
You just overconfidence.
Latency and the other pilot. That they're gonna
Say it again.
latency and the other pilot thinking that, assuming that the other is going to do something, so they kind of let that accident.
Yeah, there's probably a continuum of expectation with the CFI, depending on who their student is, what level they're at. If you're a CFI and you get in the cockpit, the guy who has maybe 7 or 8 hours is a brand new pilot, you know you're going to have to be extremely engaged. If you get in the cockpit with somebody who has 1,000 hours or whatnot, there is probably a much higher expectation on the part of the CFI that this pilot next to him is going to know what to do and when to do it, depending on when the last time it was that they were in the cockpit.
I think the fancy term for that is expectation bias.
Okay, yeah.
I believe, yeah, well, this is what I'm expecting, therefore this is exactly what's going to happen. Wrong. Nope. Yes, Kyle.
On the other side, I remember a check ride up at wherever I don't know, it was a long time ago at South Valley. And my first 2 landings, I wasn't just fighting the wind, I was fighting the instructor. On the third landing, I took my hands off the controls and let him do it. And it was funny because he said that third landing was the worst one.
Okay. Lance?
I noticed this as a pilot, not an instructor, and I've flown with most of the instructors in this room. The ones that give me the confidence is out of the corner of my eye, I can see their hand like this, touching the yoke, but it's right there. And it was actually Craig where I started noticing it first, but it's always right there. And I have experience, and I do a pretty good job landing these airplanes, but they're still right there, even with me.
Be right there at the, yes, yeah.
Of course, what you want to do is don't let
or student or pilot flying the airplane as an instructor exceed your comfort zone, your ability to recover. You got to think ahead a little bit, and you've got to realize when that person may be putting you in a situation you can't recover from, or would have employ superior pilot skills to do so.
I will circle around to that very concept here in a bit. Again, National's concern is, are we letting pilots fly too deep into the errors or into errors? And then what we've just been talking about is, how do we judge what is too deep into an error? We don't want to restrict learning, because there's value in allowing a pilot to make a mistake. I know that some of the things that I remember very best about my aviation past are the things that I did wrong. Those stand out. I don't remember an awful lot of experiences 10 years ago of stuff I did right, but I sure remember some things 10 years ago that I did wrong. Yet damage and loss has resulted from waiting too long to intervene. Craig, is that a stretch or is that a hand up?
That's a hand up.
Hand up, yes, sir.
You want me to tell you when there's questions from here?
Sure.
Okay.
Although I'm at 10 minutes and 10 minutes and 6 seconds now.
Okay.
So I'm gonna boogie. Yes, sir.
I have the privilege of flying with new CFI applicants on a fairly regular basis. And I'm playing the part of a simulated student in this scenario. And I intentionally try to, several times during the flight, present typical student errors, hoping that my CFI applicant will notice, correct, take over, intervene in this situation. And I was with one just a few days ago. We'd landed at South Valley Regional, and I intentionally let the airplane start drifting to the left of the runway off center line. I was really hoping to see my CFI applicant say verbally, I have the controls, take over and correct. Instead, he did get on the controls. He starts trying to go to the right. I'm still trying to go to the left. And we ended up doing this little dance down the runway. Instructors, please verify with your students what it means to intervene. Because if you don't say as an instructor, I have the controls, your applicant's going to think, at least for a while, that he still has controls. And what's more dangerous than anything? Two people fighting for the controls.
That's right. That's right, and it happens in heavy metal, real heavy metal. Yes, sir.
Just to piggyback on that, I was in the back seat of an airplane when we were landing in the small airport in the Oklahoma City area, and we had a pretty stiff crosswind. And you had two pilots in the front, and they ended up fighting each other, and literally one of them ended up with a broken yoke in his hand. They were fighting each other so hard.
Oh, wow.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that's bad news.
that was sporty.
Cap? Yes.
Okay. Dennis Malloy said, what techniques do instructors use when a student freezes on the controls?
Question coming from our offline audience is what? Say it again.
What techniques do instructors use when a student freezes on the controls?
What techniques do students use when a student freezes on the controls? This is a little simplistic, but I'd say whatever works. I think that what Craig said a minute ago has a lot of value, is brief in advance when you expect the student to let go, but sometimes that does not work. What I'm about to suggest is at the extreme edge here, but I read very recently, just a day or two ago, that it may get to the point where you have to cause the student physical pain. Now that, I think that gets almost into the point of stupid. But if a student really freezes on the controls, you need to do whatever you need to do to get, so I don't have a good answer to that. Cap does not have an answer to this question. Mike said, we've looked at AOPA, we've looked at FAA, we've looked at EAA, and we found no good answers there to the question of what's an appropriate, this whole instructor intervention issue. He said the Cap saw an excellent Air Force presentation on the topic, but he said the Air Force is not sharing that yet. He said they will, they've told us they will, but Cap National apparently does not have that yet. And Michael said, Greg, what we want is for your wing to discuss this and figure out, at least get some general answers that'll work within your wing. So what does don't let the other pilot kill you mean to you? In Craig's example he brought up, it means let's not taxi the airplane off into the dirt and the runway lights. Any additional? I mean, I'm not nearly done. Oh, not nearly done. Lee?
I think there are different degrees of intervention. And as an instructor, it's important that you recognize when things are not going the way that you expect them to. Your student may not recognize that, but if they're doing something that's a little different than what your expectation is, then you start down that process of intervention. Initially, that intervention may just be watching them to see if they're going to respond, if they're going to correct the situation, and if they don't, bringing it to their attention. As you get further and further down that road, higher degrees of intervention are appropriate. And so, you know, I think that when we talk about not going too far down the error path, it's important for us as instructors to recognize the different appropriate levels of intervention.
And then a continuum of intervention.
Yeah.
Better early than late. I mean, if you have to err, I would err on the early side. Joe?
Two-way communication is a big thing from student and instructor. As a young pilot, I would not say any of what I was doing. And I had some instructors that were fine with that, and other instructors that would frequently ask everything, do you know this, do you know that? And over the years, I've gotten a lot better at saying, I know I'm 50 feet low. And I've noticed some instructors will, if I haven't said, I know I'm 50 feet low, they'll say, you know you're 50 feet low, what are you going to do about it? But I think maintaining that dialogue and expecting that dialogue allows the instructor to know whether I realize the problem and I'm trying to combat it, or whether I'm clueless to the problem and we're going to go a lot further down that road before we intervene.
I enjoy a nice little commentary from the student on what he or she is doing. I picked up that habit somewhere of just verbalizing what I'm doing. In fact, I often do it when I'm the only one in an airplane. So that's a good thing. Scott and then Marilyn.
So I think Ken Byrne kind of alluded to the fact that maybe you can't really define where you can intervene on the ship, partly because of the abilities of the CFI. For example, I'm fairly new on the CFI for 2 years. Sometimes I may have a chance to go here and concern what's going to happen later on. But as I gain experience, I found that I'm more comfortable getting further and further into the approach and flare. So you can't really just say it's at this particular place. It's based on the student, it's based on the conversation between the two, the CFI and the student is based on the CFI. So,
Oh, it's a judgment issue. Absolutely. Marilyn.
Well, I really like what Joe said about talking, because I think as a CFI that I wish the student were thinking exactly what I was thinking, you know. And so if they're talking, I know if they're having some of those thoughts about, are you doing this, are you doing that, you know. So, and even I fly better when I talk to myself. I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this. You know? So I don't know if other people have that experience, but talking through it in the cockpit is actually, I think, really helpful.
Craig?
I've looked back at my own career as a CFI over the last 25 years, and I've noticed kind of an interesting change in how I approach this. When I was a brand new CFI, I was really cautious and didn't let my students get anywhere near trouble. And then as I worked more and more and more with them, I found that it's valuable for them to learn from their own mistakes to the point where safety is not compromised. Maybe that's not even the word. You haven't fallen over the edge. You might get close. And then I had a couple of unfortunate experiences where I let them go too far. And so since that point, I backed off to the point that I kind of mentally decide, how far can this go and still allow me ample time, space, resources to recover if it continues in this direction? Where is that point? I'll back off from that a little bit from there.
You're looking for the Goldilocks zone.
I'm looking for the Goldilocks zone.
You know,
And
that's-
that changes with every student and every CFI.
Absolutely. Let me toss out a couple of concepts that occurred to me as I was putting this together. And I'm not saying that these are a must-do. They're just some ideas that you may want to consider. Consider a simple error versus a compound error. What an example of that might be, let's say the student or the pilot flying is high on approach, period. Well, that's a simple error. Let's say the pilot flying is high and fast. Well, now that gets to be a compound error. High and on speed, or high and slow, is correctable. Low and slow is a compound error and a little tougher to correct. And so when you try to find this Goldilocks zone, you might want to ask yourself, well, all right, this pilot is doing something incorrectly. Is this a simple error that is fairly easily corrected? Or are we getting into a compound error that is not going to be so easily corrected? That makes a lot of sense to me. Watch carefully for the compound errors. Most errors that we, not all, I hesitate to say this, I will say it, most errors that we need to deal with are going to be on approaches. And that's time for high vigilance on the part of the pilot in the right seat, be that an instructor or another pilot. Compound errors warrant correction earlier than simple errors. Yes, Vern.
One of the things that I've looked at on here is, and when I went through the safety course, accidents that were made in one aircraft, and this was the other pilot's normal aircraft. If you're used to flying the 182 turbo, and you're in that 172, you're not going to be able to power out of it, etc. So what you're used to flying, if you're in a different aircraft, I had a CFI tell me once that if you're in a new aircraft, you're a student pilot, you spell student STUIPD, because it's not going to perform the way you think it's going to do.
Okay, let me toss out, thank you, Stan. Let me toss out this idea. Train yourself to recognize on the 45 degree, as in entering the pattern, if the landing is going to work out well. Is there any merit in that, or is that just way too early? Yeah, big merit, I think. So thinking ahead, get in your head ahead of the airplane as an instructor is a good idea.
That depends if Greg Soter's in
I'm sorry, say that again. I want to get this.
I want to get this on tape.
Say it again, Jason.
I just said it depends if Greg Soter's in the right seat.
All right, depends whether or not Teerlink's in the right seat. By the way, for those of you who don't know, Craig is one of our local esteemed DPEs. He's one of the pilot examiners. He came in wearing a black hat, but I noticed that he's taking it off.
And one other thing, he was actually the previous stand eval officer for the wing.
Yes, indeed.
So I'll rip him off.
Good. Well, we all should. Let me go back one. How do you tell? Well, how do you tell that? Or we could talk for an hour and a half of how you tell on a 45-degree entry whether or not the landing is going to turn out well. Another suggestion that I would make is right seater, assign yourself the PM, pilot monitoring role. In the airline world, there is assigned a pilot flying and a pilot monitoring. And they mean exactly what those words say. And whether you're an instructor or whether you're a mission observer or whether you're a passenger sitting in the right seat, I recommend that you mentally assign yourself pilot monitoring role in that flight. The pilot monitoring is a critical component of crew resource management. I was referred a day or two ago to an advisory circular. That's what AC is, isn't it? Advisory circular? Yeah, all right. An AC having to do with crew resource management, and it was written for the airline world. Boy, I'll tell you, it was deep and extensive, really deep and really extensive. And crew resource management works. It's very real. Who here has not ever had the thought that, boy, I sure like flying with a second pilot in my plane, especially in a challenging flight, than doing this by myself? Crew resource management is a good thing, but it's only good if you use it. Another suggestion is CFIs, keep your head in the game. Down in Provo, there's great legends about an FAA examiner that typically would be asleep by the time the aircraft taxied to the run-up area. And he didn't much have his head in the game, but we owe it, I think, to everybody in the airplane, particularly if we have a CFI responsibility, to keep our head in the game. Watch and analyze all the time. You owe the left seater your attention. Don't be guilty of getting in the right seat and nearly nodding off and just not paying much attention. You owe the person in the left seat your attention. Another one, say something. Don't back off your comments or suggestions. Don't hold them back. And I have a tendency to be guilty of this because I try to be a nice person, try to, be affable and make people feel good in my company. And it's very easy for me to, in my role as a CFI or an examiner, to be sitting in the right seat and see something that is not quite right and say, oh, I should say something about that. Oh, I don't want to. I don't want to hurt this person's feelings. Come on, Greg. And any thoughts? Anybody have any experience on that particular concept of saying something that needs to be corrected? Vern?
I think sometimes there's a fine line there because as a CFI, you don't want to cause browbeating the pilot. If they make a simple mistake or something is noted, and after the flight, have a discussion about a post-flight. I think that's very valuable. If there is something that's really serious, absolutely say something.
Thank you, Vern. Good comment. I'll open this up. You know what the fastest 26 minutes in the world is? It's when you're standing giving a presentation. We've got just another 3 minutes. Any other comments on this whole topic? Thoughts that we can share that would be useful? Yes, Greg.
I had the opportunity to fly with the CFI as the safety pilot. And I'll tell you, he spoke the entire time about exactly what he was doing. And I learned more on that flight than I can even talk about. Just being the safety pilot, observing how he performed, what he did, and he talked the whole time.
Okay, that backs up what Marilyn said and what I commented on of the value of verbalizing what's going on in the airplane. Thank you, Greg. Yes, sir.
So I'm hesitant to mention this, but for the CFIs in this room, I'm working on my IFR. Went up with a CFI, just for to shoot approaches, do a hold. After what our first approach, she told me, let's go ahead and do a VOR hold. Done it before, but in the process, her phone rings. She tells me over the intercom, I got to answer this call. So I'm in the process of doing a hold while she's in the right seat talking to somebody. I enter the hold, I do 3 or 4 laps in the hold. She's still on the phone. I'm not sure what she wants me to do after this because she's checked out. I guess my point is for CFIs in this room, it's insulting. One, I'm paying for it. 2, I got none of her attention. she's talking towards her right shoulder, like I can hear her with my headset on. And, I mean, that was the last flight with her, but.
Well, it's insulting, it's bush league, it certainly is unethical, and who knows how much further it goes than that, but,
Hold it, this was, you were in IFR, you were under the hood. She wasn't safety pilot.
Oh, she was not anything, she was.
So that's actually a safety violation. I'm hoping this was not on a CAP airplane.
I'm gonna stop here, but.
It was not me.
thank you very much for your comments, for your considerations. Intervene early, don't let the other pilot kill you. 29
May I say one thing?
29 and 19.